first keynote, I invite Professor Frank Miller to give us his keynote speech.
Yeah, I think, can you hear me like this? Yeah? Okay, so you do it better from here. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. And I think my task is to give a little bit of introduction, even if I see so many familiar experts here in the audience that probably don't need an introduction into mass customization and the state of the art. Nevertheless. Okay, so what is it where we are talking about? And we normally in the past we're really focusing on the second aspect that is there, that we are really focusing very much on the efficiency and the production system and the cost. But then over the years, I think we realized mass customization in the end is, well, it's about efficiency and cost, but in the end it's about really serving customers. And it's really putting the customers first, but making a profit out of it from the fact that people are different. And we are now talking about mass customization for many, many years. I remember I started with it in '94, this is almost 20 years ago. And it's unbelievable that you stay with a research topic for so many years. But still, it's somehow exciting and perhaps just happening. And perhaps this is also one of the other reasons that you were just too early. And we all were too early with the first conferences. And it just takes time to develop. Many of you know this Forrester report. And Forrester, over many big consultancy, and over many years they talked that mass customization is a fad and will not happen. But finally, last year they published a report where they say it is now the future of production of products. If you go in the repositories, and Paul, who will speak, I guess, tomorrow, he has a big, big database, and there are other databases. And you find hundreds, even thousands of different products. So there's really a big, big supply. There are also more and more numbers, and I don't go into them. We'll hear probably some of the success stories during the courses of the next days, that mass customization somehow is paying off. The first big, pure mass customizer is going to Wall Street. So it's showing it's a story that you really can bring to Wall Street. And I think this is new, that for the first time really the global mega brands are significantly investing in mass customization. They all were piloting and playing around. But now we really saw some big investments. Nike, I will come back to them, probably of the established companies. One of the larger players here, Coca-Cola with their freestyle system. They now have thousands of machines, and I don't know if you know it. It is like a customizable, like a printer of drinks. And you go to a fast food outlet, and you can really not just select out of 90 different pre-configured drinks, so you have all the brands, but you also can have a cherry Coke with a little bit of vanilla and extra coffee and a twist of lemon. It sounds not good, but people like it. And it's really, and if you know something, if you studied business administration, you may know that the concentrate business of Coca-Cola is the most profitable business of all. It's more profitable than drug dealing and hedge funds and so on. So this is the most profitable business ever invented, selling concentrate, and with this they try to reinvent it. And it was the largest investment of Coca-Cola in equipment ever in their history is in these mass customization machines. So it's really coming up. The same like Kraft, one of the other big brands. The first brand since 15 years they're introducing to the market is a brand, also a drink entirely based on personalization of drinks. M&M's or Mars is really getting larger and larger. So we have now finally these really big stories. However, if we really look into the market of mass customization, we see that the majority of companies are still rather small that it is. So we did these MC500, and some of you saw it already on the San Francisco conference, where we studied 500 companies, quite detailed with regard to the auto experience, and 120 of them we benchmarked by coming in, and this is much too small to see here, But if we really look into these 120 companies that participated in the benchmark, we see that most of them are still rather small. So the majority, even if we have this big mega brand, the majority of companies are very, very small still. And really driven by startups, probably like our shirt manufacturer or others. And also if you look on the revenue side, we have to admit that in this traditional product focused customization still is really rather big, but we have rather small, but we have these big exceptions. And I think the product we just got is very prototypical. So are they here? The owners of the shirt company? Will they be here tomorrow? Okay, so as we can challenge them, as there are already 180 other companies making men's shirts. 180. And so you can say, why do we need 180 first? So I'm curious to hear what is their secret. But it may be also that, of course, we have, I don't know, 3 billion people that need men's shirts. So it's also a big, big market. While other categories are much, much smaller and not so crowded. And also here, these are some in the 500, the distribution of the categories. But what you see is the other, at the very end, this is the largest category. So you almost have everything really customized yet. And yeah, there's nothing you can't get customized. What do we have here? Samurai swords, heat-sensitive mugs, mobile phone socks to be customized. So if you want something to have customized, you get it. However, and this is what I think really was a little bit of a constraint for us as a community, we shouldn't stay focused to these consumer products. It's for a long time, and also in my own thinking and writing, when we talked about mass customization, we were always talking about consumer products and customizable products. And this is nice, and perhaps we were always fascinated with this, but this is just a very small field where we can apply this kind of thinking. And probably one of the major drivers, and I don't know, Soren, if we have a paper about this on that conference, is probably what is happening in medicine and healthcare in the moment. So this is a slide I stole from Songli Chen, who some of you will know, a former student of Mitchell Tseng. And he mapped out some of the evolutions in healthcare, and he compared it with the manufacturing system. So over the years, really in traditional healthcare, we had from the really very focused craft medicine, the traditional medicine, over the year to something like here matching what happened in manufacturing. The scientific method was invented, big centralized hospitals, managed care with a lot of services going into healthcare. And then at the same time as we had mass customization entering manufacturing, well, perhaps this is now entering really healthcare. And we used to have also in the early days of mass customization, some of the first case studies were on customized healthcare. So, of course, we always had craft customization in healthcare for prostheses and so on. But then there were these guys in customized nutritions, like vitamin pills and so on. And they discovered people are all different, people need a different vitamin mix. And these were one of the very first applications of mass customization actually in the early, mid-1990s, where these think, okay, I go through a survey and can customize my vitamin pack, and this continued. Then there's one system that perhaps you got it even as a treatment, Sirona, was a Siemens spin-off to making artificial teeth and crowns and so on. And traditionally, and I think many of us got it, if we don't brushed our teeth well enough as children, we had to go to the dentist. And traditionally they take this imprint, and then you have to wait 2 or 3 weeks, and then you come back and they have it. And Sirona already 15 years ago came up with the idea, say, no, we bring the production to the dentist office. And so the dentist has a small milling machine and a 3D scanner and a CAD system, and while you are there within 1 hour, then you get the entire procedure. I got it by accident. My dentist had it, it's perfect. And this is around for more than 15 years. And then the next was happening probably in hearing aids, also using additive manufacturing, 3D printing for hearing aids, and so on. But this was very much focused on the product. And I think the exciting thing, what is now happening in personalized medicine, is that we get really so much data. And that our iPhones and on the internet, we have very, very easy way to really measure people, to get real-time body measurements, to have very cheap DNA testing, and so on. But I think the next wave of personalization in healthcare really will be data-driven. And this is probably, I'm bet in 2 or 4 years conference, we will have 50% of the papers of medicine. And this is really the growth area there. And I think this is also a task for our community. So a lot of people go to this field and they have no idea of mass customization. They come from medicine and they start to make all the same mistakes. They don't know about configurations, they don't know about robust processes. They think it's a big, big opportunity for our community to connect with these people from medicine and healthcare and train them a little bit what we are talking about since 15 years. And this is also one thing, even if in the remaining of the presentation we'll go back to products, but really think about that customization is much larger than products. Many of you know the case studies of Me Adidas or Nike ID. So it's about product. But what you see there is a new store of Adidas in Germany, Neo. They have a second brand, like a teenager brand, Adidas Neo. And here they don't customize the product, but they customize the entire shopping experience. So what you see there is a social mirror. So if you try on your clothes, you can immediately post your picture to Facebook and discuss with your friends how you look like in this. So you're really personalizing the shopping experience. And you bring your friends in the store instead of having a standardized sales associate. And it is all what we talk about. Credit cards, one of the famous examples that Capital One became the most profitable credit card business in the US by really customizing the contracts, not putting a picture on the credit card, but really customizing the contracts. I mentioned Facebook. If you think about what is Facebook? So it's all about personalizing your media consumption and your communication. Or Pandora or other music internet radios that really help you to get a customized stream. And I think this was for a long time a little bit our mistake of a community, or at least my mistake, that we focus much too much on these cheap consumer products. But if we apply our kind of thinking to these kind of products, first we have a much larger market, and I think a lot of the developments are really happening now in these fields and not solely in consumer products. And if you look on that in Nike, there are some estimates that now for Nike that have Nike ID, which perhaps makes, I would guess, $300 million now. But on top, Nike has Nike Plus, where they customize your training regime. They have these armbands where you get feedback, and so it's all about personalization, the usage experience. And this in total is much more than $1 billion for Nike, so now getting a significant part of their business. But of course, we all know that doing it is not enough. And we have great example of mass customization, like with the auto industry, Capital One, I mentioned Dell, of course. But we also have big, big failures. Like Levi's or Procter & Gamble with Reflect. Both companies are very famous, but they all failed. Or this is an example I got from Fabrizio, where he said, even if you do it successfully, you have to do it in the right way. So Tetra Pak, we all know, and Tetra Pak became large by saying whatever you want to have, we have a standard container, and as an industrial client, you can put every picture on the container. Yeah. But then SICK came, a competitor, they said we build an even better machine, and now with our machine, you not can just put every design on the container, but you also can customize the container to differentiate your product on the store shelf. And so SIG is dramatically eating all the business from Tetra Pak. And it just brought the degree of customization a little bit further. So and this is in the thinking, and now comes a little bit of a repetition for the ones who were in San Francisco. And this is really bringing these kind of research we did for a long, long time with Fabrizio, with Thorsten, Christoph, and so on really understanding what are these capabilities of companies that do mass customization correctly. And I think what we perhaps can do in the discussion is this is still very much product-based, this is the empirical phase, but really brainstorm a little bit how we can transfer this to services and these kind of media applications. So very basically, and Joseph Pine, who you all know at least by name, came up with this nice picture. And by the way, I will give you the presentation so you can live with it. So yeah, much nicer resolution. But you can take pictures, of course. Joseph Pine explained mass customization with this picture quite nicely. What is it in the end? Well, mass customization is you have a target market, you have your portfolio of customers. Then, of course, we focus on the individual customer for one product. But then at the same time, you have the portfolio of your capabilities, what we call the solution space. So it was a parametric design, an architecture. And then for each individual customer, well, we pick some of the elements of this predefined solution space. And then as a third thing, we need some processes to combine these resources so that an individual solution can be delivered. So, and as I used to do my PhD in operations management, but this is, well, 15 years ago, and I forgot everything. I don't go more into this. And Cipriano, I think you're more the engineer, will hear on the connection between the manufacturing system, the product platform, and configuration from you in a second. Well, the second is choice navigation. And choice navigation, this is, which was discovered later, and I used to say that I saw no company failing because of the manufacturing system, but often as they were not able to deliver the great flexible manufacturing to customers. So choice navigation meaning really helping customers to find what they want. And so these are these automotive configurators, for example, if we stay with BMW. And on this, we did quite some research with the MC500, where we really looked into detail how these configurators are doing. And share a few slides from this study. And so the focus of this study was really this traditional B2C online customization where most of the applications are. And what we did for every company of these 500, we trained experts, meaning pure students, which has to do it for credits. But we really trained them very, very thoroughly to do an evaluation, and we checked it that each site was at least evaluated by 3 to 5 people. And so what we looked is in some of the features that has been described in especially the marketing literature as success factors of mass customization. And have a look in the program of this event here, I also see some of these research. And so we were trying to map, are people in practice doing what we in academia preach? And so from all the papers on mass customization, mainly from the marketing domain, we knew, for example, that visualization is very important. So we developed a scope to really measure visualization. A second is, we know that it's important to help people to navigate the configurator. A third is, there should be not just help on the configurator, but also like a help function by the company, like FAQs, to educate people about the offering. But there may be also a customer help, meaning that you can ask other company customers, the community, to help you. There have been quite some papers that suggest that customizers should include the community to help other customers to configure. And then got some scores on the left-hand side. We just measured with a count scale, is it there or not. And then the right-hand side, how realistic is it, how it measures usability, the creativity, the design freedom you have, and the enjoyment you get as a customer, and the uniqueness of the resulting design. And we did this for these 500 companies. And so when looking into the data, first, the longer we have to publish this very soon, as the longer you wait, the more companies die. So even after half a year, 17% of our sample were dead. It's great for researchers, as you have a success measure, you have a dummy for success, survival rate. But it's also, I think, prototypical for the domain, which is still very dynamic. And it's logical if you have mainly small companies still. Of course, they make mistakes and die. What we also found when we then looked into really what are the customization offerings, and so the dimensions of customization these companies offer. We grouped them in some industries, but then really looked a little bit how do they present the choice, and what is it what these 500 companies offer to their consumers for selection. So what we have here is there are two different kinds how you can offer choice. One is you really have a toolkit. And I think this is where we'll talk more about tomorrow, if we talk about customer co-design and co-creation, where you really give the customers a lot of design freedom. But of course, a lot of traditional customization is like with Dell, a parametric configuration. You just have a long list of pre-configured choices, and and customers just can select from this list. The other dimension is where you really start to customize. On the one hand side, we know we can of course customize on the form or the aesthetic design, and the other function is more on the functional or the fit. So for the shirt we just got, we could customize it on all three dimensions. We can customize the aesthetic design, we could customize the fit, and probably a little bit the function by putting a pocket here or pocket there or whatever. Not too much functional customization. You could easily think if they would have offered a special fabric with sports, fabric also would go functioning. So by mapping this, also you can see normally how these things are translated in the manufacturing system. So very much if you have a list selection and form a little bit here material, color, shape, this is a typical modular product design. The company thinks in really modular product designs, they normally can provide in the configurators the sets, and it's mainly on fit and function. On fit and function. Here, this is more on flexible manufacturing system like digital printing, for example, or 3D printing, where I don't really need a modular design, as it's not a bill of material product, but I have more flexibility. And just for the numbers here, so we saw that only 4% of the 500 companies really went into pure function customization. The majority is only offering aesthetic design. And then we have some, like these are all the shirt companies and custom clothing they have made to measure. So the fit dimension. But you see already here the majority of the companies is in the aesthetic customization field. And then we saw a little bit here how it is presented. So the more you go down here, we find the more infinite the solution space is. That you really could have, because of a parametric design, not just bill of material components, but really customize the product. And so two observations from this. If there's one of you in the company who want to open a customization company, well, on the one hand side, we could say don't go into aesthetic design. It's totally crowded. Go into functional, and this is what I say for many years. And we have some of the data which we are still getting. It's very difficult to get success data, but our data indicate that companies that really customize on all three dimensions, fit or function and aesthetic design, but not just aesthetic design alone, are more successful than companies that just customize on one of these dimensions. And in the moment, everyone is just offering on a static design. However, we also could say, well, perhaps these companies are more clever as they know exactly what the market wants. Perhaps the people are not interested in customizing functionality or fit. They are really interested in self-impression and so on. So you can interpret it from both ways, and I don't know the ultimate answer here. In the configurators, interestingly, the majority of the configurators are still really following a parameter-based approach versus a need-based approach, meaning a parameter approach is where you as a customer get all the options, have to make the choices. While a need-based configurator is like mimicking a good salesperson. So a need-based configurator would not ask you about your product options, but would ask you how would you like to look. And then if they want to look great, they would translate great into a design that would meet your body type and hairstyle and so on. This is also has been defined by a lot of empirical research that this is a better configurator, but no one is doing it in practice. What we also found in this study, and this has been found before, that really customer satisfaction in choice navigation is very much driven by the process experience. So really it's important how you design the configurator, and for here I have some suggestions for the people from the shirt configurator. As I think they were very great engineers, but they should have read some marketing papers. But it was, I think they can improve there, we can discuss with them tomorrow, as it was very technical, very parameter based, and not really some elements of enjoyment into it. And so what we found there, and what we know from the literature, that really process experience is driven by usability, inspiration, that you get something on the help function, visualization, and so on. And from the data we really found that these elements, these design parameters of a customization load on this process satisfaction and explain to a large extent overall customer satisfaction. Yeah, I think I don't have to explain these things in detail, but again here, you see, in general, these are all things what the literature says in experiments we have to have, like design inspirations by companies, suggestions, design inspirations by other customers, suggestions by customers. But even this, only 40% of the companies have it. Here, where we have high-end A+ journals saying you need this, no one is doing it in practice. So there's a big gap. We see it with others. Nice papers in Journal of Marketing saying you should integrate mass customization with social media, like what Adidas did. Not many companies are doing it. Product help. Also, not really much. 20% only really explain you about the product features of these. Pricing, a lot of literature that you should have modular pricing. Well, very few use it. Fulfillment information. Only 50% really tell you about the delivery time and give you information where your order is. And so on. Options for express, country, process help. There's been at least 5 PhD studies that really looked into how in these helping people with the navigation process. It's a core of configuration. And we know a lot from Cipriano's research and others how to really do it on a technical way, design the rules and so on. And so we know that this is important. I think we also know how to do it. And here, well, 73% of the companies even don't offer a save button. That you can't save your configuration in between, which is probably the most easiest way. Visualization, 35% no visualization at all. At least 55 instantly. All the new things really almost not available there. And we could continue. So we could say, on the one hand side, all these companies are stupid. They just don't listen. They don't come to our conferences. Where are they? But perhaps they're also much more clever. perhaps we also do all research what customers are not interested in. And perhaps all these managers from their intuition know that no one needs all these complicated functionality. Perhaps customers are just satisfied with the easy side. Perhaps even if a configurator, what we as experts say, oh, all this is missing, perhaps most consumers don't care. And say, well, this was a great experience. But I think here, it's a fascinating field to really study this theory-practice gap. As most of the research on this has been done in experiments. As all the marketing researchers, we do the same. We just set up an experiment in the lab. It's so easy, cheap, very replicable. You get students as test subjects and you get whatever you want. And this is what you publish in the top journals. However, it may be that this is a great way to really study this, the gap from both sides. And I think probably the truth is somewhere in the middle. On the first hand, I think really as researchers have to do a better job to educate companies about these basics of the research. But on the other side, perhaps we also have to have a more open mind that don't to make things overcomplicated and think of one nice additional technical feature here or there, but perhaps it is really not the configurator but other elements of a mass customization system that really make this more. If you want the study, write to Dominic, he will send you the full study, and he gave me the slide with 50% discount, but if you say you're a pure student, he probably will give you 100% discount. Okay, so that was on navigation, on the choice navigation, and the third capacity or capability is the solution space definition, really defining what should be in the configurator. And let me go over this quickly. And we'll come to this, I think tomorrow will be the day that is focused on co-creation. And I think this is the overlap between this co-creation research and mass customization research, which on the one hand side has nothing to do with each other. So it's somehow strange that in this conference and also others, we mix mass customization and open innovation. They're really two totally different things. But here's the thing, but somehow the same people are interested in it. But here it is where it's mixing, and you can use these open innovation and co-creation techniques in a good way to design a solution space for mass customization. Okay, how I'm doing for time? No. We have more, and you all want coffee and so on. Let me 12. Oh, okay.
Please, not be precise, otherwise I will be in problem.
Yeah.
Because I am surely not precise.
Okay, but I have like 5 minutes. Okay, so these capabilities, and we knew, and this is what we shared already in San Francisco, for a long while, we wrote in our Sloan paper, we said it's additive. So our assumption for a long time was that for companies you can build these capabilities step by step. So first, let's say you build really a good solution space capability, you enter the market, and then later on you add robust processes and a great configuration toolkit. And in a model, an empirical model, it would like this, that all these capabilities individually would load on financial and market success. In these 120 companies where we have the benchmarking data, when we tested it, well, nothing worked. And we really had to but reject our hypothesis. So it seems not to be really an additive view, and then that's a nice thing if you're an empirical researcher, you just draw a new model, and you play around with the data, and then if you say, no, it's a complementarity, so these individual capabilities are not loading directly on its financial success or market success, but there is a meta capability in between that we call mass customization capability. And it's always a nice thing with structural equation models and meta capabilities. You don't really have to know what it is, but the data works, and then you can make a theory out of it, what it is. But it's not so simple. But in general, what we found here, you really have very nice explanations of success. If you say, no, there is a meta capability of a company that is formed by a capability of a company to understand, really to balance and build these three capabilities simultaneously. So it's not sequentially, but to do this simultaneously. And so, of course, few word of caution, this model was pure B2C. We are in the moment replicating it with 2 PhD studies that replicate the studies in B2B. With a sample of about 350 B2B companies. But in B2C, it seems and always we have to remember that many companies are really young in the sample, and this is, we talk about capabilities, if you have a very young sample of companies, it's always a little bit tricky. Nevertheless, to explain it here, had this in San Francisco, it's a nice story of why you have to do it really simultaneously and not sequentially. You may know My Muesli, which I have no idea what it is, probably trillions or more, possibly muesli variations, Viokas cereal, and so really started with a solution space. A solution space for muesli is very easy. As well, yeah, you know what goes into cereals, and actually these are the two founders, and they started the company in their student kitchen, as one of them don't like raisins in the muesli. But he don't want to have a muesli all without raisins, he just wanted to have a muesli with a little bit of raisins. Well, you can't buy it, you only can buy a muesli with much of raisins or no raisins. And so he came up with the idea of customizing it, and all the product development for this, well, you can do in your student kitchen. And there's a given set of ingredients, and it's very easy to experiment with this. This was some of the first market research studies when they started to grow. And then they also really worked on choice navigation, as they realized, well, to know what goes into muesli is rather easy, but how to present a food product on the internet is tricky, as you can't simulate taste, or you can simulate taste, but much more difficult. So you really spend a lot of effort into these configuration tools. And it worked quite well, so we were really good in choice navigation. And even experimented with stores. That you say, well, perhaps if we can't simulate this taste, we have to go to some supermarkets, but this is not where you buy the product, this is just where you learn about the product. So it's like a customer education center, and then later customers still should go to the internet to order. So they really spend a lot of effort here. But they totally forgot the robust processes. When the company was growing and they had really more and more success, yeah, they had a big problem. This is how the manufacturing looked like. Well, it's a lot of ingredients, but if you're a manufacturing guy, this is not really how a food company should look like. And always when the media were reporting about it, and they got a spike in sales, they sold out. And they just thought, oh, muesli, it's so easy. We just need cheap labor, and they mix together with a scale, muesli ingredients. But this is very difficult to scale up if you have a TV report and you get 1,000 times more orders at a day, and this can happen. So they hired this serious guy who was a manufacturing guy, and then after about 10 years invested in a huge shop floor, and it's the most advanced, it's a nice YouTube video, fully automatic muesli mixer. So this now can mix 72 ingredients in lot sizes of 1. It's, yeah, best of German engineering. I don't know if you really need it as sophisticated, but it really worked. And with this now finally, they really could connect it, and now they're really not just selling products, but they're also becoming profitable. And now they can fulfill all these orders complementary. Okay, I go over this. So I think I gave you some ideas. And I think we have, at the state where we are now, we really know a lot about mass customization. And after this conference, we will even know more about it. There's great research in the papers. But like 2 or 3 things. I think we really should think of all this product-focused research, and I'm also doing it not yet in a scale how I'm now saying it. We should really try to bring it to other domains. And I think with healthcare, it's very, very promising. And perhaps also more well, giving us higher satisfaction. Instead of helping people to design a better t-shirt, perhaps we help people to live a better life. And perhaps this is more rewarding on the long run anyway. The second is, we should really care about really communicating more with practice of what we are doing, and really perhaps also matching a little bit instead of doing another experiment, as it's so easy to add a potential element to a configurator toolkit or whatever, but really see how it matters in real life practice. And but certainly, I think it's still a great way where we are just at the beginning, even after 15 years, as now the market is really growing, the big companies are coming to it, some of the smaller ones are getting more stable. But I think probably still in 20 years we will be here and talking about the same things, but hopefully they are on a higher level. Okay, so we learned there are many heterogeneities, ways to profit from it. And this is, I put in because of Robert, so you have to blame him. As he said, on the very beginning of my presentations, like tenure, you saw one only with pictures. And I used to have this picture, sorry, it's getting a little bit rowdy at the end, but about that everyone wants customization. So, and I use these pictures in the former time to illustrate the value of customization. But then, this was theory. And a practitioner colleague tested this in real life. But if you offer customization in real life, well, sometimes it is not delivering. So for sometimes. Okay. So I think this is also should remind us what is the real degree of customization.
It was predictable.
Is it really where we should start with customization? And in general, really, how do we define it? I think we really have to customize the definition and the value proposition for customization for different kind of businesses. For the practitioners here, what is really, how do these three capabilities translate to a specific kind of business or industry? How does it fit into it? We really think more about how to make it scalable. So what would happen with our shirt manufacturer if they would get 10,000 orders a day? Then only they do real mass customization. Are they able to do this? And in the end, what is really unique about it? If we have 180 shirt customizers, what is special about the 181st thing? Where are they different? Okay, with this, I hope was some food for thought. Really looking forward to the discussion. And I think, as you said, Zoran, it's great that it's not such a big event, but a smaller one will be here until the very end. And really looking forward for the discussions with you on the next days. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Tom. Maybe we can have time for one or two questions for discussion. If you have a question to Frank?
Hi, I'm quite interested in the thing you mentioned about the customization 500, and you showed all the very interesting statistics. And I'm just wondering, do you know the sample size for that?
Yeah, 500. This is why it's called MCP-500.
And then in terms of all different companies, or?
Yeah, I will give you the presentation. There were some of the slides I skipped as it was much too small. I will give it to you and then you can look it up. As I don't know it all by heart. But in majority all B2C companies and most of them still startups. I think of the 500 there are only 40 which are big global brands. The remaining are startups.
And also in terms of the social data, I know you were talking about more tomorrow. I'm just quite interested because one slide is talking about when you ask people whether they want to show or share with a friend about the decision, and the majority of people said no.
No, they were not saying no. Most companies were not even offering the option.
Oh, there's no.
They would like, but I think Paul can say more about it. As just in the so say hello, Paul. So Paul, he did a study on also the social media usage, and so he can share more about this tomorrow. Or I don't know if he will or later in the break. Exactly.
Thank you.
Very interesting, Frank, as always. And we as an audience always getting some news when you present. Even we have seen this before, some of it before. It's very interesting. I'm focusing on my muesli. And it's a very interesting case. After 10 years on the shop floor, mixing all these ingredients. When did this company or whoever was helping them with new machinery, when do they recognize that it was the process of mixing that actually was the damper of the
they were business students. The founders are marketing students, 2 business students, 1 law student. And they don't have really operations background. And they were very much focusing on growing the company, and growing for them means adding another factory with human labor. And they had 3 factories. But then, and this is also one of the interesting points, it really turned out that my muesli, which they never thought of, became a supermarket brand. So 55% of their muesli is standard. It's pre-configured, sold as a normal cereal in a supermarket. And they just use the My Muesli to build a brand and enter a market which is very mature. And so by growing both in the standard thing, where they need capacity, and really think it is not costing to just add another human labor factory, they got into this and said, well, we really have to think, can it be done with machinery? But also these mixing equipment is totally custom built. So you can't buy a custom cereal mixing machine with so many, different ingredients on the market. And I think it's really, as they hired the senior guy to run the manufacturing. And he was coming from mass production. And so he analyzed it for 1 year and said, well, if we want to continue to grow, and really now we are going in the business to doing business not just with consumers, but with big supermarket chains. We need stable and very fast fulfillment. And then they got additional money and invested in this. So it's still, which is probably good for all the manufacturing guys here, it's still that manufacturing matters a lot in mass customization, like in these My Muesli. And also perhaps we should reinvent somehow, as this is also somehow at the beginning of our conferences, like in Hong Kong, the first one, we were 70% engineers. So last year in San Francisco, we were 5% engineers. Not from your basic education, but from the schools, the faculties you come from. So somehow I think in the engineering department, they tick this, say, oh, mass customization is so old. But I think it's not true, and probably have to bring this also. Okay, I think we should.
Maybe.
Okay, one more.
About the case My Muesli, I have a question about, because you showed a strange number, which is the number of options that the customer can choose. I'm interested to know that how they define the borders of their solution space, because it seems a little...
Yeah, it's all trial and error. And this is good with the ingredients. So mainly it's like 5 base muesli cereals and then plenty of nuts and fruits and so on. So what they do of the different techniques, how they define the solution, it's really, they just analyze past configurations. So they do a little bit of market research. But then they're saying, oh, there is a very special Serbian sherry, whatever. Let's say there's a very special Serbian sherry. And someone they say, okay, let's offer the Serbian sherry for 1 week. And if people react on it, they really put it through this. So it's really, they do it with real live testing. And interestingly, what they also say, and this is why they now offer standard muesli, they realize for most people, they really start with a pre-configured mix. So most people don't really configure the muesli. They get a standard mix out of like 25 and then only modify 1 ingredient. By adding more raisins less, adding the special Serbian cherry, but that's it.
But no, the question is that I was wondering that where's their stop point in order to not enter the mass confusion part,
Yeah, this is, it's all by pre-configurations. So they would do it, and I have the customer number 9. I was there, I ordered at the first day and wrote a blog posting. This never will work. This is stupid. As I was totally confused, and the muesli I mixed tasted awful, as I put in too many ingredients. So it was awful. Luckily, they proved me wrong. And I think really the main navigation is they do a little bit of a survey. So they say if you want to do sports, if you are whatever, a pregnant woman, so some occasions where they think your nutrition may be different. And out of this, and then most people really just add 1 or 2 ingredients. Yeah? Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Frank.
So, thank you.